It's about that time, baby, baby. Oh, yeah. Here we go. Here we go. The Sinclair Show is on. It's on. Running to your friends. Come on, come on, come on. So on the show tonight, Bill Peg is like Sinclair is on tonight. Once again, it's so you still talk to your right. And your other sister show so we can talk. Get the answers to your questions because we see that truth. Sometimes doubt yourself, lost your health. Faith is on the fence. You believe in Jesus, knows your will. Keep it moving, spirit flowing because we're here to provide. Someone to lean on when you fall against the 89 and it's on. Once again, it's on. You're listening to the only morning show at night, people. It is the Sinclair Show coming to you live and direct. Once again, people. First of all, I want to thank all of you all who continue to send your mailbag questions and comments to Sinclair Talk at Outlook.com. I'm going to continue to address as many as possible each night we're on the air to reach who? You all. Why? Because y'all the valued listeners. That's right. You all are the valued listeners. Meaning, if it wasn't for y'all, I could be resting right now, relaxing. But instead, I got to come up here and do good business, do good work, getting in good trouble. That's what John L. Lewis used to say, that we get in good trouble. That's what we're doing tonight. We're going to get in good trouble. Because we're going to talk about some things tonight that probably going to make somebody uncomfortable out here in listening land, if you will. And if not, I'm pretty sure that the he say, she say crew will get the information back. And so we'll be checking to see how that flows. But at the end of the day, it simply is what it is. But we're going to talk about a couple of topics tonight. So anyway, man, there's been so much going on lately. You gotta think that it's a lot going on when y'all boy Diddy ain't even in the news. I don't think. Well, he ain't in here much anyway. So you know it's got to be a lot of crazy stuff going on because it seemed like for about a month, the old ditster was up in the he was up in the news every day. So yet and still, we out here on listening land about to have some dialogue about some things. First, for all my Lakers fans, yes, we took an L last night. And so the Lakers are out of the playoffs. And I know some of y'all are saddened by that. I am as well, but let's be honest. We struggled to get in, so we shouldn't have been no surprise to y'all that we was going to take a L going on out the door. I suspect old Darvin Ham will not be around next year. I could be wrong, but I would suspect that he won't. Anyway, so let me see what else been going on, people. Y'all see the weather breaking. Hey, some of y'all been sending me these little pictures of y'all and the saying y'all got some snakes in your yard and all that. The matter of fact, let me who is up here right now because I just seen James pop on with that. First, there was Gwendolyn, Lady Elegance Pritchard, doing it like she doing it all the time from Huntsville, Alabama. That's right. Alabama, they always making the news, but for the wrong reason. Detective Pamela Black, glad to see you. Look at James talking about how about them Lakers. Man, listen, see, James, it don't even bother me. Now, some people, it would make them feel some kind of way, but not me. I'm at a different level of my game. You can't even make me mad about the Lakers losing. Simple as that. We just gonna be what it is. Because in about 2 more weeks, you know what? There's gonna be a whole bunch of people you talking about. How about them people? Matter of fact, is the Knicks still playing? I think the Knicks about on their way out too, ain't they? Anyway, we shall find out fairly quickly what the deal is. Let me see what he's saying. He's talking about they did what he expected. Haters coming from across the rivers. But anyway, we ain't gonna let James get us down tonight because he's trying to talk about them Lakers. See, that's how you deal with hateism. You just go ahead and own up to whatever they're gonna say, and then they ain't got nothing to say. The Lakers lost everybody. I was sad for about 20 seconds. Yeah, I know I'm sitting around here looking at some of the I be getting emails and text messages and everything, so I'm trying to read. Uh anyway, so yeah, Lakers lost. Great job. But anyway, some people sent me some pictures, and people listen to me. Let me say this out there: if you're out there listening land, you can certainly send me all kind of pictures to let me know what's going on in your lives. But I believe you got snakes. So some people have been sending me pictures of snakes that they've been finding in their yard when they've been cleaning up and doing stuff like that. It's okay. Them snakes was out there before you. They're gonna be out there when you gone. Some of y'all be out there just nervous about them little snakes. Let me tell you something. You better worry about them snakes you got in your house. All right. Not figuratively, but you know what I mean. All you gotta do is listen. Matter of fact, it was funny. My mama, she put down some mothballs. I'm like, boy, y'all in these old school remedies. They be putting down all kind of stuff. Have you scared to walk around your own house? But they say it works. And I gotta believe it do. Because nothing wants to crawl in between you there. Yarning on air. Anyway, we ain't even gonna talk about that. We ain't gonna talk about that. What else is interesting that y'all want to talk about before we get on the regular subject matter? Matter of fact, look here. I know she probably ain't watching, but I'm gonna go and give her a shout out. I want to send a shout out to the president out there at Halifax Community College. Today was her birthday, and so let it be known that everybody y'all know who she is. Send a little shout out. I'm just saying. What else? All right, so let's talk about what's on the hot agenda for tonight. First and foremost, we're gonna talk about as the title said, we got to try to figure out what's going on with the freedom of speech, because there are some things happening in our country today that's a little bit concerning. And the reason why I say it's concerning is this. As you all know, for some time now, there have been a war going on between Israel and those in the Gaza, Palestinians, if you will. Now, they like to say it's based on Hamas, but a lot of times, as in any type of war situation, there are more civilians that get injured or people who are not in a combative situation, if you will. But that's not the point. The whole point of the dialogue today is there are moves by the House of Representatives, and I believe it will soon be voted on by the Senate, to provide penalties for those that speak in support of the folks in the Gaza. Now, I personally don't care what side of the track you fall on in terms of your support and or beliefs. I would like to think I'm somewhat independent. But here's where the challenge comes in for me. Because whenever someone says anything that is viewed as being not in favor of Israel, the first thing people say is that the individual or individuals who are speaking in a non-supportive manner of Israel must be anti-Semitic. And so they have pushed through the House a bill that would provide penalties. And so we need to understand, it says the bill would mandate that when the Department of Education enforces federal anti-discrimination laws, that it uses a definition of anti-Semitism put forward by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. Critics of the bill argue the definition is overly expansive and could lead to censorship issues. Now, let's first begin by saying this. Well, let me let you know that the House voted 320 to 91, 70 Democrats and 21 Republicans voting against the bill. If you understand what this means, they are alleging that it is hate speech to say anything that is against the people of Israel or the interests of Israel. And I would not be opposed to someone saying that if you speak negatively against anybody, but then we reflect back when it is someone speaking ill of minorities, we don't say that's hate. You've got instructors. You've got a governor in Florida to be saying all kind of slick stuff. It is not a problem with freedom of speech when you can ban books in the libraries and in the school system in Florida. That's not banning free speech. It's not banning free speech when someone who happens to be in the minority class makes a case that someone is calling them utilizing racial epithets. Then we have landed on free speech for those who have utilized those epithets. But for some reason, when it comes to our partnership, relationship, or otherwise with Israel, we take a stronger stance. And again, I wouldn't have a problem if you took a stronger stance in every situation. But it does make some feel a certain kind of way when you're not enforcing or using the conversation about the anti-Semitic feel of something somebody says against Black folks. You're not using that phrase and attaching some mandate that an action be taken. Now, for those of you who do not know, I think it was today or over the last couple of days, there have been nearly 400 individuals arrested on college campuses. Matter of fact, it's in the past 24 hours. In New York, 300 protesters were arrested at Columbia University and the City College of New York. Wednesday, at least a dozen people were arrested at the University of Wisconsin in Madison and other places. So we've got to begin. What's going on, Esther Shepard? Glad to see ya. So we've got to begin to ask ourselves, what is free speech in America? Who does free speech align with and apply to? And the reason why you got to ask that question is because if it's free speech for someone to talk hurtful, negative, violently toward people of color, here in the United States. And if we then apply the rules of the amendments and say, well, that's freedom of speech, we can't do anything about it, we don't want to wind up here. How can you randomly continue to reinforce and double stack these things when it comes to, matter of fact, if we be transparent with each other, one might say that when it comes to that, there is an unfair advantage to the way we enforce our policies and public perception as it relates to how we lean one way or another, especially though when it comes to our Israeli brothers and sisters. Now, let me say for the record, again, I don't have a problem if you are strong with how you deal with anybody who is negatively speaking or negatively impacting someone because of race, religion, demographic, any of them. I could say 2 thumbs up to all of it. But if you look in America, if you go back over the last, we ain't even got to go back like a bunch of years. We can go back over the last 3 to 5 years. And you look at every individual who may have spoken up in some form or fashion against something associated with Israel. And they didn't either blackball them, made them come back and apologize. Kyrie Irving said he watched a movie. Kyrie Irving said he watched a movie that was sold or on Amazon. And because he said, I learned a lot of stuff about my culture, and other people who watched the movie said that there were times when the movie had some things in it that was negative toward Israel and Jewish people in general, and they ran Kyrie through the mud. Not because he said anything. All he said was, I learned a lot about my culture. And immediately after that, the NBA sat him down. They made him jump through all kind of hoops to get back in the NBA. I'm talking about, it might have been, and I don't want to say the wrong number, but I think it was at least more than like 4 weeks that they had him shut down. They ain't care if the team was losing or not. It was like, we're going to get this guy. Nick Cannon asked some questions and made some comments. And when he made those comments, and everybody likes Nick Cannon. Some people think he's a little corny, but everybody liked him. But because of certain comments that he made, what wound up happening? Got to get him off the air. They took him off the air. He had to go on a sabbatical. He had to do all kind of stuff. So, and again, we're just trying to understand so that there is some clarity. How is it humanly possible that free speech in America says that if you were a member of an organization here in America who disliked Black folks, you could then make comments that were derogatory toward them without any consequence and under the protection of the Freedom of Speech Act. But if you're in America, Nikki Carter, what's going on? Glad to see ya. But if you're in America and you make a comment that is not in support of, you ain't even got to say something negative. If you make a comment that is not in support of a position most favorable to Jewish people and or Israel in general, now they want to say it's anti-Semitic. But is it really? That's one of the questions at hand. Is it really? And I think that each of us must begin to ask. Matter of fact, not even just each of us who is listening here, but I think, what's up, Xavier? Xavier say free Palestine. And again, I want you all to recognize, regardless to how you feel, I am not implying that you are wrong for whatever your position is. I am questioning tonight if we, as a country, as a nation, as a people, if we have the right to say that if I was going to call black folks Negroes, niggas, and whatever you want to phrase it, if I said those things to somebody black, nobody's going to say that because of freedom of speech, I don't have a right to say it. But you are arresting, expelling folks from colleges because they have taken the position that they believe that what Israel is doing in some senses is wrong toward the Palestinian people. And again, one could argue either way. You can't argue, I don't think, successfully that the right to think, the right to feel a certain kind of way, and the right to express it non-violently should change if it is for Jewish people, Israel, versus any other denomination. Because people be talking about the Ukraine all the time. And I don't see anybody saying anything. I ain't seeing y'all talk about, oh, we got to put people out of school if they support Russia or if they support the Ukraine. It is only when we are addressing anything that remotely is associated with any conflict that arises from an Israeli or Jewish perspective. And again, anybody who has paid attention to historical documentation knows that Jewish people went through a lot. But let's be clear about something. I'm saying this as a matter of record and fact from someone who has taken a scholarly position on finding out information, that while they went through a lot, it wasn't more than what African Americans have gone through. It may have been equivalent. It may have been similar. But while we don't have the same fight, why do we not have the same fight in us to protect the way we feel as a people toward African Americans? And there lies the question. Xavier said Palestinians are Semitic. And he is absolutely right. And I think that, again, it doesn't matter to me which side of the envelope you fall on. One could argue, if you knew the historical context of something, that if a people resided in a land, okay, and again, let me stress for those of you who will have your personal feelings one way or another, I don't have a dog in this fight regardless. But if you were to look historically, if a person and or a people resided in a particular area from birth, then that would mean that they are from that area. If I was born in Jackson It doesn't matter if I am, because of financial conditions or force or whatever, if for some reason I move out of Jackson, it doesn't mean that I was never from here. It still means I'm from here. And so you have to say to yourselves, if we are fighting, if we are funding assistance for those in Ukraine to stay in their particular area, we are fighting and funding for those in Ukraine to be able to have the right to live where they've been their entire lives, then we might ask ourselves, why aren't we doing the same thing, or at least utilizing our ability as a funder or resource provider to others? What's going on, Ty? As a resource to others, why aren't we doing the same thing? Because those of you who are probably older than 20 can probably remember that every few years we see where I can remember the time when the area that many of the Palestinians were living was, they came under fire, if you will. And I cannot say whether it was provoked or not, but the end result of the combative situation between them and Israel wound up being that once Israel had overwhelmed the people of Palestine, they took bulldozers and they moved them back. In some of the areas they tore down, and some of the areas they allowed Israeli people to move into the settlement, as they called it. Now, again, doesn't matter to me which side you fall under. The question goes back to, we are passing laws in the United States to strengthen the language used to put people out of college for speaking up on behalf of a position that is not favorable to Israel and in support of saving people in Palestine. That itself does not make sense to me. And so I want you all, first of all, to start paying attention. Andy Moore, what's going on? Glad to see you. I want you all to start paying attention to something other than TikTok and social media things that got you twerking. I need you to pay attention to some things, because if you turn on your news, or if you read in the newspaper, or if you look at shows that are talking about the things actually going on, one might say, how is it? And I know this may be an uneasy question for my Anglo-Saxon brothers and sisters, but one might ask the question, how is it that we are so quick to move to address laws and change things when it is someone speaking? We ain't talking about actions. Someone speaking a certain way that is unfavorable to Israel or Jewish people, but we still, every 25 years in America, watch Congress vote as to whether or not Black folks got a right to vote. If you can move that fast in America in support of a position that says, because we are friends with Israel, we support them, I have no problem with us being supportive of Israel. I don't have any problem with us being in support of anybody. Be good friends to everyone. But I do have a problem with the fact that we are standing on business when it comes to that, but we're not standing on business when it comes to the rights, the non-voting rights. You shouldn't have to vote on every 25 years if black folks can still vote. That don't make no sense. You voting to strengthen the language used in the terms anti-Semitic, but you couldn't muster up enough strength to vote and put some teeth behind hate crimes in the U.S. You are voting to ensure that if somebody is speaking negatively or non-favorably toward Israel, that you can do something to them. Where is the bill that says if you speak unfavorably to black folks or minorities or any group, that there is some teeth into that? I'm just asking. Because there has to be balance. America, that's what I'm talking about tonight, is the lack of balance. It's not that I want you to choose one way or another. I, like many Americans, simply want consistency. I'm not arguing that you should be able to talk reckless about Israel. I'm not arguing that you should be able to talk reckless about the Palestinian people, because where is the bill that says if you dislike the Palestinian people, that you can't talk reckless about them? That's all I'm trying to figure out. And we are not paying attention when they say 300 to 400 students who were protesting between New York and these other colleges, and they were arrested. When we're talking about they are putting campus presidents off, they are putting faculty, kicking them out of colleges because they had a position unfavorable or unsupportive of a war against the Palestinian people. And let's be clear about something. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to either get some vehicles might pull up at my door, or I might get a little ban. So if y'all don't see me out here for the next couple of weeks, y'all know probably one of these social media platforms, probably somebody complained and maybe somebody got banned. But let me say this. The Palestinian people as a whole are not bad people. I mean, let's be clear. If you say you have a problem with Hamas, okay? If you say, people, they go Jay Dizzle. What's up, Nizzles? If you say that you have a problem with Hamas and that Hamas has been doing things to provoke those in Israel into some conflict, if you believe that, I don't have a problem with it, because I believe that there is some evidence that could sustain one believing that they have had no problem going into conflict. I don't know who provoked who, but you can make the argument about a sector of Palestinian people who happen to be Hamas, who may be feeling like, hey, I'm ready to fight, to stand up for mine. Maybe folks think they provoked it. I'm not arguing that point, because I personally don't have enough information to determine who started what with who. But I once sat down with someone who was from Palestine, and she was a seamstress here in America. And she would do the alterations on my suits and things. And so one day I had an opportunity to have some just regular dialogue because I'm the type that will ask questions. And she asked me how would I feel if somebody came to the home that I had been in my entire life and forced me out. And she was not a member of Hamas. She was Palestinian. And when somebody who has been in a situation asks you a question, sometimes those questions will cause you to think and be forced to provide yourself, if not them, an answer because of the fact it is easy for us to sit on one side of the plateau and say what we would or would not do. Now, let's be clear. I am not in support of Hamas or anybody randomly firing off rockets into Israel because I don't think any innocent person should be injured or killed. Now, me being a prior soldier, I am clear that there are times when nations believe that they have exhausted all measures of peace and that the only solution to get to a place of long-term calm is to have conflict. So I am not a hypocrite. And in fact, I personally believe that sometimes if you want war, if you want peace, you must be willing to go to war. We like to assess that everything should always be calm and nice. But anytime you are dealing with situations where not everybody agrees with the same thing, there will be conflict. So my question to you all is, how do you feel that about Congress strengthening guidelines that allow people to be put out of college campuses? And in fact, other things occur because they take a different position than one that is favorable to Israel. And because they do that, they are called or praised as being anti-Semitic. How do y'all feel about that? As a matter of fact, let me ask a question. Could a person not like Israel's actions and not be anti-Semitic? Think about that. Can a person, matter of fact, we can even make it simpler. Isn't it possible that I don't have to like something that Johnny does, Jay Dizzle does? I can not like his action and not hate him. I cannot like something he does, and it doesn't make me a hater of black folks because Johnny did something that I didn't personally agree with. And I think for those of you who have relationships with your congressmen and your senators, these are some things you must consider. When you're sitting down and you're breaking bread with folks, you should be asking them these tough questions. Well, what can you say? When did you get to the place in America by which To simply disagree with something makes you anti-Semitic. If I were to say that I am not in agreement with a retaliation, I'm even going to say it's retaliation. We're going to assume, for the purposes only of this conversation, meaning I have no factual data, but for the sake of this, let's assume that Israel's overwhelming response to Hamas was based on a provocative action on behalf of Hamas. Let's say, just for the purpose of this conversation, shouldn't it be measured? There lies the question. And I think it's this thing that we have with the Palestinian people. Because let me tell you what they didn't do. The Palestinian people, let's say they shot over 25 rockets into Israel. And let's say they were 100% wrong if they did it. And that the people who reside in Israel should not have to go to sleep and wonder if somebody is going to shoot rockets at them while they sleep at night. Let's say that's true. And let's say that Israel had the right to retaliate to show the people who were within the Palestinian lands, and certainly that includes Hamas. Let's say that they had a right to retaliate on that. Shouldn't it be measured? Let me see what Nikki Carter talking about. Nikki Carter said, have you factored in the impact of colorism in this situation? Yes and no. And the only reason why I'm saying yes and no, Miss Carter, is because I don't want to lose sight of the focus. It's not that you're not right or could be right. It's that I don't want to give somebody an opportunity to jump off the focus at hand and then say, oh, well, we're making everything about race. The question I was getting ready to ask was this. One must assess that there is something greater going on as it relates to the Palestinian land, and not about whether or not we care if somebody said something slick about Israel or Jewish people. We got to admit that there is something a little bit amiss, because we will allow Israel to take an overwhelming response, meaning a response that may or may not be balanced to what Hamas did, or balanced to what is alleged that the Palestinian people did. On one hand, if you shot 25 or 50 rockets over here, then I shouldn't be able to bomb you for 25 days and say that I'm doing it because I'm going to crush you. And so it leads you to never think that you could do that again. Right? So then if we say, and I want you to understand something, I want y'all to put your thinking caps on. Because if you did that kind of offensive and we were supportive of it, why didn't you bomb Iran for 25 days? Because they shot 150 coming your way with drones and everything else. And you did an attack on them, and it was measured. You did it for 1 day, maybe 2 days, and you got up out of Dodge. And you want me to tell you what else happened? We in America was like, no, we don't want you fighting with Iran. And so I'm just trying to understand, if it's not about land, if it's not about someone being able to confiscate more land, then you tell me, if you took a immeasured approach when it came to the Palestinian people, who you know you have the technology and resources to overwhelm, if it was about, if anybody bombs us, we're going to do an overwhelming measure to show them don't do it again, why didn't you take the same exact measure with Iran? I'm just asking. Because one group shot 25 to 50 rockets over near you. Another one did 150 rockets and drones. And on one hand, you use overwhelming force for 20-some days now, if not more. On the other one, you did a couple of measured counterstrikes and you left it alone. Why is that? Because if we were to agree with you and say, hey, we don't have a problem if somebody bombs you for you taking whatever measure, and you just say anybody that bombs us, anybody that threatens our people, we're going to use overwhelming force, great. We can rock with it. But again, consistency is the problem. The consistency of trying to understand, but you did not use that overwhelming force when it came to Iran. And they let you know they wasn't playing. And America, we as a nation stood up and said, hey, look, we don't want y'all getting into no major tussle with Iran. Nikki Carter said it's because Iran got them nukes. And that could be it. But the other part of it could be that there are some, and we're not, and just like we're not talking about all of the Palestinian people, we're not talking about all the Israeli people either. Okay? Let's be clear. But there are some in the Israeli government who must have a motive that is greater than just deterrence. Because if that was the case, you would have put at least 25 days into battling with Iran, because they sent a greater destructive force your way when they tried to send 150 drones and rockets. And people, that's the reason why I say we must always ask the question, what is this thing, whatever this thing is, what is it really about? James brought up a point. He said it's the canals and the ports. Very possible. I don't have any proof, but it's very possible. Isn't that the same reason why Russia wants the Ukraine? Because there are optimal parts of land that they want to control. And you've got to say it's something greater than just respecting their right to live peacefully, because we all respect that. But the question becomes, why is it if one person does something to you, you're going to slap them on the hand? Somebody else, you're going to beat them for 25 days and we're going to say it's cool? And people don't allow anybody to make you believe that we don't have a strong influence with Israel. We provide them billions in assistance and resources every single year. As a matter of fact, sometimes it is a little bit peculiar when people say we should not be sending funds to the Ukraine. We ought to be spending those billions in resources here in America. But I never hear people saying we shouldn't be sending billions of dollars to Israel in equipment and financial resources. All I'm saying. Nikki Carter said Israel has a lot of money in this country. Sure they do. But Nikki Carter, I'm simply posing questions for you to think about. If Israel was that fiscally stable, then why would they need our money and resources at all? James said, remember the alleged explosion at the port a few years back that no one claimed? Here we go. Very positive. James could be absolutely right. I just want you to think about it. See, a lot of times we say, oh, a country is wealthy. Well, wealth is relative. There are some countries that don't never ask for our help. And I'm fine with it. If you decide you want to pick a fight with somebody, don't pick a fight and then ask your brother to come fight for you. Let's see what Nikki Carter said. She said, because if we don't help, we risk them pulling their money. That's a perspective. Now, let me tell you another perspective. There is no country that can pull any money out of the United States. They don't have to put any more in it. But if the United States says, look, we don't care what you say you own on paper, you ain't going to come take it, and we're going to put a block on you. And let me tell you what people do. Let me tell you what people in the U.S. government do all the time. All the time in the United States, when there are countries that we are non-supportive of who do business in America, we freeze their assets. That's simply the truth. We do it to both countries. We do it to individuals. So nobody can strong arm you. Now, they can say we're no longer going to provide you with anything, which is still relative. But to assume that we are being strong armed, nobody can really take anything if we didn't want to let them take it. That's simply the truth. But the whole purpose of this dialogue tonight was so that you all would go, first of all, and look at what's actually going on and look at how they are passing laws, specifically stronger laws to make it more illegal for you to even speak a certain way that is not in favor of the position being taken by Israel. That's what I'm concerned about. They said if they build this canal, only one of these countries stand to lose. Guess which one? Absolutely. And again, I want you to think about that. Think about the fact that what this show tonight was about, freedom of speech, and how easy it is becoming for, and let me say this. I want you all to consider the Supreme Court has said it is okay for Donald Trump to say anything about anybody, even to the point of harassment against law clerks and other people. The Supreme Court has held he can say whatever under the guise of freedom of speech. How is it you can harass somebody who doesn't even know you? You can berate them and talk reckless to them here in America. But if I say I disagree with a stance that is most favorable to Israel, you are passing laws on a regular basis to strengthen what can be done about it. That's what is peculiar. You could not get Congress to act against Donald Trump in some of the alleged illegal things that he is accused of, but you can get Congress to pass laws that strengthen if somebody says something that's slick in the mouth about Israel, that you are able to apply certain penalties. That's the problem. The position is not the problem. It's acting laws and strengthening guidelines to prevent someone from disagreeing openly with something associated with a particular group or demographic, but you're not providing that to everyone. That is the issue for me. And I want you guys to be aware of that, because it is something that may start off that way, and it may turn into something different. I need y'all to understand what I'm saying. Today, it is that. It can easily turn into something greater than that at another point. Because once you move in a particular direction, it is easy for someone to come back and say, if you did it like this, then why can't we strengthen the guidelines that says, I mean, think about this. If someone says, hey, I don't believe that this demographic should be able to get loans. We should be able to make it harder for this demographic to get loans. Now, some of you might say, oh, they would never do that. It's against the fiscal interests of America to do that. Really? I'm just saying, when it's possible and when it's proven, all anyone needs to do is apply case law to be able to say, we've already done this before and it's been successful, to encourage people to do it at a different level. Keep that in mind, folks. And again, I'm hoping that what you all will do is that you will go out, you will pay attention to what's going on in the news, you will do some research, because everything we see in the news is not accurate, but most of it holds some level of truth. I need you all to do your due diligence so that when it comes time to vote, we're a few months off from voting. When it comes time to vote, you are paying attention to who you are sending to Congress, who's at your local level, as Johnny always says. Because people are voting 300 and some to 91. I don't know which side most of you in America have fallen on, but I do know if you're not paying attention, we will wind up in a situation where today they're voting on strengthening the language associated with what they can do if you speak in a way that is non-favorable to Israel. Tomorrow is going to be them passing votes to something else. Now is the time for you to pay attention. Look, people, it's time for me to get up off this show tonight. Can't do nothing but be glad that y'all done hung out with me, and I'm going to holler at y'all later, because it's time to go. It's about that time, baby. Oh, yeah. Here we go.